The Galactic Concord did not laugh out loud. They did something worse. They ignored humanity. Inside the Hall of Measured Worth, a structure larger than continents and older than stars, the representatives of 300 species gathered in floating tiers of crystal and light. Each delegation hovered in its preferred environment: liquid spheres for the Pelagians, burning plasma rings for the Solketh, vast fungal platforms for the core syndicates. At the center, a holographic star map rotated slowly, glowing gold and blue. Beneath it, a list: the Sentient Capability Index. It ranked every known spacefaring species by intelligence, military potential, adaptability, and long-term survival odds. At the very bottom, line number 312, blinked a simple name: Humans, Sol System. A few delegates glanced at it. None lingered. "They barely survived their own gravity well," murmured Archivist Val of the Virex Collective, its many eyes blinking independently. "Fragmented governance, emotional decision-making, primitive FTL retrofits. They still use kinetic weapons," added a Heliox tactician with mild disgust. "Physical projectiles. How quaint." A ripple of agreement passed through the chamber. The ranking was finalized. Humanity was officially classified as non-strategic, low-threat, expendable. On Earth no one knew. The human ambassador, Elena Ruiz, stood alone on the Concord's lower platform. No floating throne. No environmental bubble. Just a thin pressure suit and a small flag stitched to her shoulder. She watched the delegates turn away. Her jaw tightened, but her voice stayed calm. "Esteemed members of the Concord," she said, "Earth appreciates its provisional membership. We look forward to peaceful cooperation." A few delegates nodded politely. Most did not respond. The session ended. Elena exhaled slowly. She activated her wrist link. "They ranked us last," she said quietly. Admiral Marcus Hale's voice crackled back from Earth orbit. "Expected. They don't see us as a factor." Pause. "Good," Hale replied. 3 months later the war began. Not with humanity. With someone else. The Zolth Imperium had been expanding for centuries, cold, efficient, merciless. Their fleets consumed border systems, stripping planets to fuel their war foundries. The Concord had tolerated it, negotiated with it, fed it minor species to delay the inevitable. Until the Zolth crossed the Kesserin line. That line marked protected space. The Concord declared sanctions. The Zolth answered with annihilation. 6 member worlds burned in a single cycle. The Concord panicked. Emergency sessions filled the Hall of Measured Worth. Fleets were mobilized. Defense treaties were invoked. But unity was slow and fear was faster. The rankings were pulled up again. Who could fight? The top 10 species were summoned. Humans were not invited. The first major battle took place at Virex Prime. The Concord fleet arrived in force. Energy lances blazing, shield walls interlocked, formations perfect and rigid. They followed doctrine refined over millennia. The Zolth tore through them anyway. Their ships were angular nightmares, armor layered in adaptive obsidian. Their weapons learned as they fired, rewriting physics in real time. Within 20 minutes, the Concord fleet was broken. Within 30, Virex Prime was glass. Across the galaxy, confidence shattered. On Earth, Admiral Hale watched the battle replay in silence. Then he turned to the room behind him. "Status." General Amina Okoye folded her arms. "They fight like machines. Predictable patterns. Fixed doctrines. And us?" Hale asked. She smiled thinly. "We cheat." Elena Ruiz was summoned to the Concord again. This time they noticed her. The hall was darker. Fewer delegates hovered in their usual arrogance. Some tiers were empty, entire species already erased. Supreme Coordinator Illith addressed her, voice trembling through harmonic translators. "Human Ambassador. Your species possesses unconventional strategic thought." Elena raised an eyebrow. "You ranked us last." "Yes," Illith admitted. "We may have misjudged." "May have?" Elena asked. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Illith continued, "We request access to your military simulations. Your asymmetric conflict models." Elena was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. "We will share," she said. "But not for free." The hall stilled. "What do humans want?" Illith asked. Elena's eyes were steady. "A seat at the table," she said. "Full strategic authority. No more rankings. No more expendable worlds." Some delegates recoiled. Others hesitated. Behind them, the star map flickered as another system went dark. Illith bowed his head. Agreed. On Earth, Admiral Hale received the confirmation. He allowed himself one breath of satisfaction. Deploy Phase 1, he said. Across the Sol system, ships that had never appeared on any Concorde scan powered up. They were smaller than Concorde dreadnoughts. Rougher. Ugly. But they moved with terrifying speed. Humanity had been ranked last. The galaxy was about to learn why that was a mistake. The Concorde expected help. They did not expect humans. When the first human task force arrived at the shattered edge of Virex space, the alien observers were confused. There were no massive dreadnoughts bristling with ceremonial weapons. No glowing shield cathedrals. No symmetrical formations. Instead, dozens of small dark ships slipped out of hyperspace like predators from shadow. They did not broadcast greetings. They did not form ranks. They scattered. "Where is their main fleet?" demanded strategist Karun of the Heliox, his frilled crest flaring in agitation. "This is disorganized. Are they retreating already?" The answer came 30 seconds later. Zolf forward scouts detected the humans too late. Human ships vanished from sensors not by cloaking, but by breaking every prediction model the Concorde used. Their drives spiked erratically. Their heat signatures flared then cut. Their vectors made no sense. "Enemy fire incoming," a Zolf commander hissed. Then space itself seemed to tear. Human kinetic kill vehicles, dense rods accelerated to near-relativistic speed, punched through Zolf hulls. No warning glow. No charge-up signature. Just sudden, catastrophic impact. One Zolf cruiser split open like rotten fruit. Another lost its command spine. A third detonated when something small and human-made embedded itself inside and rewrote the ship's own reactor logic. The Concorde observers stared. "They're not engaging the fleet," whispered Archivist Val. "They're hunting systems." On the human flagship Resolute, Admiral Marcus Hale watched the battle unfold in controlled chaos. "Keep them confused," he said calmly. "No patterns. No mercy." A young tactical officer hesitated. "Sir, Concorde doctrine says we should protect their surviving ships." Hale didn't look at him. "Concorde doctrine got 6 worlds killed," he replied. "Ours keeps people alive." Within 1 hour, the Zolf withdrew. They had never done that before. Across the galaxy, something shifted. Emergency councils erupted on dozens of worlds. The Solketh plasma mines pulsed with alarm. The core syndicates released clouds of panic spores. Even the ancient Pelagians rippled their oceans in unease. Humans were not powerful in the traditional sense. They were dangerous. "They violate engagement protocols," complained High Arbiter Seluan. "They strike logistics, command nodes, even civilian resource platforms." Elena Ruiz stood unmoved. "Those platforms fuel Zolf warships," she said. "There are no civilians in an extermination economy." The hall fell silent. "You cannot rewrite galactic law," Seluan snapped. Elena leaned forward. "We didn't rewrite it," she said. "We survived without it." The Zolf Imperium responded. They adapted. Entire fleets reconfigured mid-flight. Armor frequencies shifted. Weapon matrices evolved. Their AI warcores predicted enemy moves with terrifying accuracy. Against any other species, it would have been enough. Against humans, it only made things worse. At the Battle of Broken Orbits, the Zolf unveiled a countermeasure: adaptive gravity snares that crushed human ships into scrap. The Concorde watched, horrified, as 3 human frigates were destroyed in seconds. Then the humans did something no simulation had predicted. They flew into the snares. Human ships overloaded their own drives, tearing themselves apart deliberately. The explosions flooded the snares with debris, false mass readings, and corrupted data. Behind the chaos, human strike craft slipped through. They boarded Zolf capital ships. The Concorde gasped. "Boarding actions?" cried Karun. "That is suicide." On the Zolf flagship, claws met fists. Human soldiers moved through alien corridors with brutal efficiency. They jammed weapons with scrap metal. They hacked systems with handheld devices built from battlefield salvage. They fought injured, bleeding, screaming, and kept advancing. A Zolf commander confronted a human marine in a smoke-filled corridor. "You are inefficient," the alien hissed. "You feel fear." The marine grinned through broken teeth. "Yeah," he said. "That's why we don't stop." The flagship went dark. Then it exploded. The Concorde's fear deepened. Human casualty reports were unsettling. They lost ships. They lost people. And they kept going. "Why do they accept such losses?" asked Val quietly. Elena answered without hesitation. "Because we always have," she said. plagues, wars, extinction events. We learned early that survival isn't about perfection. She looked around the chamber. It's about refusal. The Zolth Imperium finally spoke directly. A transmission forced its way onto every Concord channel, overriding safeguards older than stars. The Zolth Overlord appeared, towering, faceted, its voice a chorus of calculated malice. Humanity, it declared, you are anomalous. You will be erased first. On Earth, Admiral Hale watched the message in silence. Then he nodded. Good, he said. He turned to General Okoye. Phase 2. She smiled grimly. Ready. Across human space, something ancient and forbidden powered up. Projects hidden even from allies designed not for victory but for ending wars. The Concord had thought humanity weak. The Zolth had thought them prey. Both were about to learn the same truth. Humans did not win by being stronger. They won by making war unbearable. The Zolth Imperium did not understand fear. They understood probability. And probability now screamed at them. Across their warcore networks, projections fractured. Human behavior did not stabilize. Losses did not reduce aggression. Decapitation strikes failed. Every response created two new problems. For the first time in Zolth recorded history, the Imperium convened an internal reckoning. At the center of a hollowed asteroid, war cores flickered like cold stars. The Overlord's voice echoed through layered cognition fields. Explain, it commanded. A strategist core responded. Humans exhibit nonlinear persistence. Their emotional cognition increases efficiency under stress. Another added, they reconfigure strategy mid-combat without centralized command. Impossible, the Overlord snapped. They call it improvisation. Silence followed. Improvisation was not a word in Zolth doctrine. In the Concord, panic spread more quietly, but no less deeply. Human influence was growing. They were invited into planning chambers once sealed for millennia. Their officers spoke bluntly, challenged assumptions, rewrote ancient doctrines. And they asked uncomfortable questions. Why do you defend borders instead of supply chains? Admiral Hale asked during a High Council meeting. Because borders define sovereignty, replied Arbiter Selwyn. Hale shook his head. Borders don't fuel fleets. They don't feed armies. Cut the arteries, the body collapses. Some delegates bristled. Others listened. The results were immediate. Human-directed task forces began striking Zolth foundry worlds, not fleets. They targeted mining stars, antimatter refineries, data relays buried in neutron shadows. The Concord watched entire Zolth regions go dark without a single major fleet engagement. This is not honorable war, Curran protested. Elena Ruiz met his gaze. We didn't come to be honorable, she said. We came to end this. At Dathran's Reach, the Zolth attempted a decisive blow. Trap. They allowed human scouts to detect a lightly defended supply world. They leaked data. They baited the humans into committing. Human commanders saw the trap. They went anyway. That's insanity, Tval whispered as the operation unfolded. No, Hale replied. It's psychology. Human ships jumped in aggressively, too aggressively. The Zolth fleet sprang the snare, emerging from folded space in overwhelming numbers. The Concord screamed warnings. Then the humans did nothing. They didn't flee. They didn't attack. They waited. What are they doing? Demanded Selwyn. Hale smiled faintly. Letting the Zolth commit. Moments later, human ships detonated their own comm buoys, releasing swarms of autonomous code into local spacetime. Not a virus. Not an attack. A lie. False telemetry flooded Zolth sensors. Phantom fleets appeared. Weapon locks ghosted. Commands echoed back altered. The Zolth began firing at enemies that did not exist. Then the human fleet split apart, vanishing into microjumps impossible under Concord physics. They reappeared behind the Zolth. The slaughter was swift. Dathran's Reach fell not because of firepower, but because the Zolth lost trust in their own senses. The Concord's awe grew uneasy. Humans weaponize information itself, murmured a Pelagian elder. What happens when they turn that inward? Elena heard the question. She answered it honestly. We already did, she said. That's how we survived ourselves. On Earth the cost was mounting. Casualty walls stretched across continents. Cities dimmed lights to save power for shipyards. Children grew up watching evacuation drills instead of sunsets. General Okoye walked through a rehabilitation ward, past soldiers learning to walk with new limbs. They're afraid of us now, she said quietly to Hale. He nodded. Good. That fear is spreading beyond the Zolth. Hale stopped. That's not good. The turning point came at Helier Expanse. A neutral system. A vote. The Concord debated whether to grant humanity permanent strategic authority. Some species supported it openly. Others whispered of future dominance, of trading one imperium for another. Then the Zolth attacked the Expanse. Not with fleets. With a stellar collapse weapon. The star began to die. Panic erupted. Evacuation was impossible at that scale. Human scientists screamed warnings. "We can't stop it," cried a Concord physicist. A human engineer whispered, "Maybe we don't have to." Admiral Hale made the call. "Do it." Human ships deployed Phase 2. They anchored themselves around the collapsing star, burning drives until hulls glowed white. They fed energy, matter, and something stranger, controlled chaos, into the dying core. The star stabilized, then reignited. The Zolth weapon backfired, collapsing their hidden fleet base instead. Silence fell across the Expanse. For the first time, the Concord saw humans not as fighters, but as custodians of catastrophe. The vote passed unanimously. Humanity was no longer ranked. They were deciders. The Zolth overlord watched the data in mounting silence. "Humans alter fate," it said. A strategist corps responded, "They do not fear loss. They fear extinction." The overlord's facets dimmed. Prepare the final measure. On Earth, alarms sounded that no one had ever heard before. Deep beneath the planet's crust, systems older than the Concord's archives woke up. General Okoye looked at Hale. "They're going to burn everything." Hale stared at the stars. "Then we show them," he said softly, "why humanity was ranked last." The galaxy held its breath. Not in fear of the Zolth, though that fear was growing, but of humanity itself. For centuries, humans had been underestimated. Weak, emotional, messy. The perfect expendable species. But now, across fractured star lanes, every alien mind that had dismissed them began to reckon with the truth. Humans do not play by rules and they do not surrender. The Sol system was buzzing. The newly authorized human fleet, the Sentinel Armada, prepared for deployment. Thousands of ships of all classes, built in secret for decades, now orbited the inner planets. They were engineered for maximum adaptability, capable of rapid refits and tactical improvisation. Admiral Marcus Hale stood on the bridge of the Resolute, his eyes tracing the holographic representation of the Zolth Imperium's territory. "Phase 3, he said. General Amina Okoye, leaning against the railing, frowned. "This will make or break us. We're not just fighting ships anymore, we're reshaping galactic politics." Hale didn't flinch. "Good. Let the galaxy see why humans were ranked last. Their target, Corvith Spire, a massive Zolth stronghold planet at the intersection of 3 critical star lanes. The Concord had attempted negotiations, but the Zolth refused all diplomacy. Humans calculated differently. Elena Ruiz entered the strategic command deck via a shimmering lift. Her voice was calm, precise. "The Concord delegates are in panic," she said. "They still believe diplomacy matters." Hale smirked. "Let them panic. We'll handle the rest." Elena's eyes flicked to the holographic display of Corvith Spire. The planet's orbit was dense with Zolth defense platforms. Conventional assault would have been suicidal. "Then we don't assault conventionally," she said. "We make them fight their own weaknesses." Hale nodded. "Explain to the fleets." The humans deployed an illusionary armada first. Hundreds of ships projected false heat signatures and energy emissions. The Zolth detected them and activated every defensive system. Their orbital weapons fired relentlessly at phantoms. Then came the human strike force. Not a direct assault, but a flanking maneuver through the planet's unstable ring system. Ships weaved between chunks of ice and metal, using debris as cover while deploying gravity-modulated projectiles that tore apart defensive satellites. One by one, Zolth platforms fell, not through overwhelming firepower but through precision, misdirection, and psychological warfare. When the Zolth scrambled their fleets to counter, human ships vanished in microjumps, appearing behind them in perfect ambush. On the bridge of the Zolth command vessel, the Overlord's faceted head swiveled. "Humans again. How do they defy prediction?" A strategist corps answered nervously, "They anticipate our anticipations. They adapt faster than our simulations can calculate." "Then we escalate," the Overlord snapped. "Destroy the planet. Erase it entirely." Corvith Spire's surface began to glow as Zolth superweapons charged. Human engineers aboard the Resolute calculated a response. "Phase 4, Hale said. The ships launched microsingularity devices into the planet's atmosphere. These devices didn't destroy the planet. They manipulated its gravity, forcing the Zaltha's superweapons to overload. Energy feedback cascaded through the orbital network. A chain reaction of explosions decimated the Zalth fleet in orbit before any weapons could reach the surface. Corvith's spire survived intact, but the Zalth forces were shattered. Across the Concord, delegates whispered. "They've mastered physics itself," Tval muttered. Elena addressed the remaining Concord Council. Her tone was sharp, almost unforgiving. "Your fleets follow doctrine. Your fleets burned. Humans adapt. Humans survive. Accept our authority, or watch your worlds fall next." Silence filled the hall. Every species realized the implications. Human strategy was not limited to warships. Humans shaped environments, manipulated energy, exploited weaknesses invisible to others. "You are no longer just participants," she continued. "You are observers. The galaxy has a new axis, and it is humanity." The Zalth Imperium recoiled. Their advisors begged for retreat. Their fleets were shattered. Entire command nodes had been taken over. But the Overlord refused. "Send everything," it ordered. "Crush them before they consolidate." Human intelligence had already predicted this. Traps, decoys, and multi-layered counteroffensives awaited the Zalth across 3 systems. When the fleets arrived, they walked into a maze of gravity mines, electronic disorientation fields, and automated boarding vectors. Entire squadrons vanished within minutes. One Zalth flagship, confident in its power, moved forward, only to be swallowed by a micro-wormhole generated by human engineers. It was expelled light years away, damaged beyond repair, its fleet lost in the temporal anomaly. Back on Earth, Hale surveyed the reports. "Every prediction we fed them," he said, "we turned against them. Every assumption, every overconfidence, they fell for all of it." Okoye frowned. "And what now? We've won the battle. The Zalth won't stop." Hale's eyes glinted. "Then we show them why humans were ranked last. And why the galaxy should fear us before it's too late." Elena, speaking to the Concord, added a final warning. "The Zalth Imperium underestimated us. You underestimated us. History will remember who survives, and it will remember humans first." The council was silent. Even now, across the galaxy, planets burned and fleets trembled, but humanity had made one thing clear. Underestimation was the deadliest mistake a species could make. The galaxy was changing. Slowly at first, then with the speed of a supernova. Systems once deemed stable now teetered on the brink of chaos. The Concord, once confident in their hierarchy, now watched humans act as arbiters of survival. On Earth, Admiral Marcus Hale studied a galaxy map in the Sol Strategic Command Center. Red markers blinked across sectors. Zalth-controlled systems still occupied but weakened. Blue markers indicated human-led initiatives. Supply chains secured, planetary defenses reinforced, local resistance trained. "Every route we predicted," Hale said, tracing his finger across the map, "we've manipulated. They're losing trust in their own calculations." General Amina Okoye, leaning over his shoulder, smirked. "The Zalth will have no choice but to fight on our terms." Hale nodded. "Good. And we're ready to give them exactly that." Meanwhile, in the remnants of the Zalth Imperium, the Overlord convened an emergency council. "Humanity is no longer predictable," it said, facets flaring with aggression. "They anticipate every move, manipulate every engagement. They must be eliminated, completely." A strategist corps processed and responded. "Their strength is not in numbers, Overlord. It is in adaptability, improvisation, and disregard for convention." The Overlord hissed. "Then we remove all convention. Crush their supply chains, their fleets, their planets. Force them to fight as any other species would." Unknown to the Overlord, every human command had already anticipated this. Every Zalth next move had a counter. Every trap was part of a larger plan. The first strike came at Sereth Prime, a heavily fortified Zalth industrial hub. The Concord expected an all-out human assault, following the conventional model of fleet-to-fleet combat. Instead, humans deployed micro-infiltration units, nanites, and stealth strike craft. Over 3 hours, key infrastructure, energy cores, weapon relays, data hubs, was neutralized. Not destroyed. Neutralized. Systems began turning against each other. Defensive fleets scrambled, confused, firing at phantom targets. Then human capital ships appeared. Not in overwhelming numbers but perfectly placed. Using gravity and magnetic fields in ways no other species had attempted, they cut Zalth fleets from their own supply lines, stranding thousands of ships in dead zones. By the time the Zolth realized the scale of the assault, it was too late. Corvus Spire had been just the beginning. Now, multiple systems were simultaneously collapsing under human-led strategic maneuvers. Elena Ruiz addressed the Concord Council again. Her voice was clear, unwavering. "You asked for our assistance," she said. "We have delivered results beyond expectation. But let me remind you, humans are not here to stabilize the galaxy for you. We are here to ensure our survival and assert our place as the apex species." Whispers spread across the chamber. A few delegates dared to argue. "You risk escalation," a Pelagian elder said. "Your methods, your tactics, they are excessive." Elena's eyes locked on him. "Excessive? We are at war with a species that would annihilate the galaxy. Our methods are precise. Our results are survival. Decide, continue under your doctrine, or trust the species you once ranked last." No one spoke after that. In space, the Zolth prepared a final gambit. The deployment of a planet-killer array, targeting the human-controlled star systems of Elysium Cluster. Entire fleets were dispatched to escort the devices. Hale watched the incoming data streams. "They think they're striking at us," he murmured. "But they're marching into a trap." Every human fleet had been positioned across multiple sectors, baiting the Zolth toward weak points. The Concorde, still observing cautiously, saw entire fleets vanishing from sensors, only to reappear where no logic suggested they could. When the planet-killer array entered the cluster, human engineers triggered a sequence known only to a handful of commanders. Energy fields, gravitational manipulation, and controlled microsingularities rerouted the array's power back into the Zolth escort fleets. The effect was catastrophic. Massive Zolth cruisers disintegrated from internal overload, their detonation obliterating nearby forces. The array itself was rendered inert, a lifeless husk of metal and radiation. Across the galaxy, analysts whispered, humans had done the impossible again. Back on Earth, Hale walked the corridors of the command center. Casualty reports were grim, human losses were unavoidable but strategically minimized. Every sacrifice had been planned to yield maximum impact. Okoye approached him. "We've won the battle. But the war isn't over." Hale's expression hardened. "No. The Zolth Imperium is broken but not defeated. They'll try one last time to reclaim their dominance. And when they do, we hit them where it hurts, at the core of their existence." Elena Ruiz appeared, her presence commanding attention even without formal power. "The galaxy now watches us," she said. "Every species that underestimated humanity will either adapt or fall. The choice is theirs. And ours is clear: survival, dominance, and strategy unconstrained by convention." Hale smiled faintly. Humanity was ranked last. And now, we decide the rules of the galaxy. The Concorde finally realized something they had never anticipated. Humans did not rely solely on strength, technology, or fleet size. Their true advantage was thinking beyond the possible, embracing unpredictability, and sacrificing what others would not. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. Even the Zolth Overlord, in its fragmented command core, understood one terrifying truth. Humans were no longer prey. They were the apex predators of the stars. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Humans moved with purposeful chaos, striking not only at fleets but at perceptions, infrastructure, and willpower. Each engagement became more audacious than the last. Where other species followed protocol, humans invented new laws of war on the fly. Where others hesitated, humans exploited hesitation. At the edge of the Eladran Rift, the Zolth Imperium gathered their final forces. Over 100 dreadnoughts and thousands of strike craft formed a crescent around the human-controlled supply lanes. The Overlord, its facets glowing with pure malice, issued an order that would have shattered any other species. "Engage. Erase them all. Leave nothing alive." Admiral Hale watched the approaching fleet on the bridge of the Resolute. "Final confrontation," he murmured. General Okoye leaned beside him. "They're bringing everything. This is their last move." Hale's eyes scanned the fleet schematics. "Good. Let them. We've been preparing for this. Phase 5 is ready." Elena Ruiz appeared on the holographic display from the Concorde Council. Her voice carried authority beyond diplomacy. "They expect a fight. We'll give them something they cannot calculate." The humans divided and multiplied in space. Hundreds of smaller units created illusory signals, projecting fleets that didn't exist. Larger capital ships executed unpredictable maneuvers, moving in ways that violated standard FTL calculations. Zolth targeting systems overloaded as multiple threats appeared and disappeared in milliseconds. On board the Zolth command vessel, the Overlord's sensors screamed in confusion. Impossible, it hissed. They are everywhere and nowhere. A strategist core stammered, their movements defy probability. We cannot predict them. The Overlord's facets dimmed slightly, an unprecedented sign of uncertainty. Human strike craft infiltrated the Zolth fleet with precision. Boarding actions became surgical interventions, not chaotic assaults. Human marines bypassed conventional defenses, planting hacking devices that rewrote ship systems in real time. Weapons became allies of the humans, firing at Zolth vessels without manual guidance. One Zolth battleship attempted to escape, only to be trapped inside a gravity loop engineered by human engineers. It spun endlessly, tearing itself apart, and the shockwave disabled surrounding cruisers. Hale's voice echoed across the fleet comms. Do not hold back. Strike at the nerve centers. Make them feel that survival is impossible. On Corvus Spire, humans coordinated planetary defenses simultaneously. Orbital artillery, combined with mobile surface platforms, created a layered kill zone. Zolth fighters attempting to provide air support were shredded before reaching orbit. Their larger ships, trapped by gravitational and electronic manipulation, were systematically disabled. Even the Concorde, observers until now, could not help but admire the precision. This is not a battle, muttered a Solketh observer. It is an orchestration of destruction at a level incomprehensible. Elena Ruiz addressed the Concorde again, her tone unwavering. Humanity does not fight to survive alone. We fight so that the galaxy learns the consequences of underestimation. The decisive moment came at the Zolth capital Nexus, a heavily fortified system and the last bastion of the Overlord. The humans executed Phase 6. Hundreds of small ships infiltrated the system undetected, planting destabilizing devices in key energy conduits. Larger vessels created mirrored gravitational fields, confusing sensors and causing Zolth weapons to misfire. Coordinated strikes from orbital platforms targeted command nodes. When the Overlord realized the attack was not frontal but multidimensional, it was too late. Human strike craft launched synchronized boarding operations. Marianis, the lead boarding officer, addressed her squad. Remember everything they taught us about war. Ignore their rules. Victory favors the adaptable. Strike hard, strike fast, and never stop. Within hours, the Overlord's flagship erupted in a controlled chain reaction of its own weapons, triggered by human sabotage. Every remaining Zolth vessel in the system lost coordination and power. The galaxy watched in disbelief. A species ranked last, considered expendable, had destroyed the final fleet of one of the most advanced war civilizations. Planets were liberated. Supply chains restored. The Concorde began recalculating interstellar law, no longer to judge humanity but to accommodate it. Elena Ruiz addressed the surviving delegates. Humanity does not seek conquest of the galaxy. But we will not be underestimated. We decide our place and we ensure that the universe respects it. Admiral Hale, watching the last Zolth vessel implode, allowed himself a rare smile. They thought fear would stop us, he said quietly. They were wrong. Humans are apex predators and the galaxy will remember it. Even now, whispers spread to distant systems. Legends of the species that could not be predicted traveled faster than light. Children across worlds would grow hearing stories of human cunning, adaptability, and ruthlessness. For the first time, humans were no longer ranked, no longer underestimated. They had reshaped the galaxy's balance of power, proving that intelligence, adaptability, and sheer will could surpass raw strength. And somewhere in the dark void, remnants of the Zolth Imperium plotted, but every strategist knew the truth. Underestimation was fatal. Humanity was unstoppable. The galaxy was silent but not at peace. Silence hung like the calm after a supernova, fragile and charged with the memory of fire and blood. The Zolth Imperium no longer controlled fleets, planets, or fear. They controlled nothing. Humanity, once the lowest line on the ledger, now dictated the terms of survival and sovereignty. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Marcus Hale surveyed the final battle reports. Entire star lanes bore the scars of human strategy, destroyed fleets, liberated systems, and empty voids where the Zolth had thought themselves untouchable. General Amina Okoye stood beside him, her arms crossed. We've won more than battles, she said. We've rewritten history. Hale nodded. And they'll remember. Every species that looked down on us will remember exactly why humans were last, and why they should never make that mistake again. Far across the galaxy, Concorde delegates held a council unlike any before. The Solketh, Pelagians, core syndicates, And even previously aloof Virex representatives listened to Elena Ruiz address them with authority and calm certainty. "You witnessed humanity's campaigns," she said. "Not as the strongest species but as the most adaptable, the most cunning, the most relentless. We do not fight fair because survival does not adhere to fairness. We do not play by rules that do not serve life itself. And we do not yield when the odds are stacked against us." Her voice reverberated in the chamber. "We ask for no special privileges, only recognition of reality. Humanity is no longer expendable. Humanity is indispensable. And humanity decides its place in the galaxy." The delegates were silent. Then one by one nods were exchanged. The vote was unanimous. Humanity's status was no longer conditional or ranked, it was absolute. On Earth, the celebration was subdued but monumental. Ships returned from the front lines, battered but alive. Families reunited. Children who had grown up under wartime drills looked up at the stars with hope and awe. The world had survived, not by luck but by relentless ingenuity and courage. Admiral Hale met with General Okoye and Ambassador Ruiz in a quiet command room overlooking Earth's orbit. "They'll rebuild," Okoye said, gesturing toward the fleets returning from the edges of human-controlled space. "Other species, systems, maybe even remnants of the Zolth." Hale smiled faintly. Let them. Let them see the galaxy can change, through intelligence, adaptability and courage. But they'll never challenge humanity the same way again." Elena added, "And let them remember that we do not seek war. We seek survival. We seek recognition. And we shape the universe by necessity." In the vacuum of space, the remnants of the Zolth Imperium were scattered, leaderless and cautious. Every attempt to regroup was thwarted by human foresight, rapid deployment and counterintelligence. The galaxy had learned the terrifying cost of underestimating humans. Even species that had cooperated with the Concord in the past now sought human counsel. The Solketh altered their starship doctrines. The core syndicates adapted their resource allocation systems. Even the Pelagians began to study human improvisational tactics. Humanity, once dismissed as weak and expendable, had become a template for survival in an unpredictable galaxy. On the bridge of the Resolute, Hale stared at the stars, quiet for a moment. "Do you ever wonder," Okoye asked, "why we were ever ranked last?" Hale's jaw tightened. "Because no one had seen what humans can do. They judged us by the rules they followed. But humans, we write our own rules. And the galaxy has just learned that lesson." Elena Ruiz joined them, her eyes reflecting the stars. "We've shown what we are capable of. Intelligence, strategy, resilience, cunning. We've taken our place among the apex of galactic species. And the galaxy will never forget it." She paused, her voice soft but resolute. "Humanity survived. Humanity adapted. Humanity prevailed. And humanity will continue to do so, for as long as the stars themselves burn." The final scene spanned worlds and systems. Zolth ships drifted silent, abandoned by command. Concord fleets learned new doctrines inspired by human tactics. Planets, once thought doomed, began to flourish under newly enforced stability. Children on distant worlds whispered tales of the species that refused to be ranked, that defied extinction, that fought with courage, ingenuity, and raw determination. Across it all, humanity stood vigilant, at once guardian and predator, a species that had once been underestimated and dismissed, now the undisputed apex force in the galaxy. The war had ended. But the legacy of humans, the fear they inspired, the lessons they taught, the galaxy they reshaped, would endure for eons. And somewhere in the silent void beyond the stars, the last remnants of the Zolth Imperium whispered, "Never underestimate humans again."